we're supposed to, as Napoleon Hill talks about, have a burning desire for something, but then not pay attention to the absence of it.
And be kind of unattached.
And be unattached.
Yeah. It's hard to do when you focus your energy on a desire that you want something.
Correct.
And in some ways, you should be obsessed about it.
Correct.
In some ways, to be like, I need to master this. I need to develop consistent habits and actions towards it. And I need to, conspire the world and people around me to support me in this in some ways, but also not be attached to the result.
Correct.
And the lacking of the result not happening right now.
Yeah, it's the challenging art of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
It's the challenging art. Neville Goddard talks about this, right? He's like, ignore your reality. Have a desire, but then ignore your current situation. Because if you keep paying attention to your current situation, you keep paying attention to the absence of the thing that you want.
Yes.
And you get locked into the absence of the thing.
So what do we do instead? Instead of focusing on what we are lacking, no matter how hard someone's working, how much they're trying and it's failing and it's not working yet, the podcast, the relationship, the financial success, the health, whatever it is, how do we detach from the result not being in our lives now so that it shows up now?
Well, the first step is understanding what we're talking about. The greatest challenge human beings have is that we don't understand how reality works. We don't understand that we are given the right to have a desire, and that if we get out of the way, 100% of the time the desire must produce itself. Now, some people will think that that means, okay, Dave, my desire is $1 million business, and so I'm just gonna write it down on a note card or visualize it, and the Amazon delivery guy is gonna deliver $1 million business to my front doorstep while I'm watching Netflix and eating cheesy poofs on the sofa. That's not what I'm saying. So we are meant to take daily consistent action towards the goals that we have. But notice when we start to move into resistance.
And what does resistance actually look like? Is it an emotional feeling? Is it a frustration? Is it a thought?
It's a great question.
Is it a lacking of action? What is that?
I have a feeling I'm going to give you 3 distinctions today. Okay, the first one is desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. I would call that the golden equation.
Okay.
That's how all outcomes are produced. So the question is, well, how do I know when I'm resistance? And for that, we go to a distinction called the 2 states of being.
Mm-hmm. Primal versus
powerful states.
Yeah.
There are only 2 states of being, primal states and powerful states. Primal states are states of being that don't feel good. States like stress, overwhelm, anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety, boredom. That's when the sympathetic expression of the nervous system is active. We're in fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are powerful states of being, states like joy, curiosity, excitement, enthusiasm, peace, calm. Those are states of being that feel good, and that's when the parasympathetic state of the nervous system is active. You are always in one state of being or the other. You're never in 2 states of being at the same time. And what's interesting is that what determines what state of being you're in is not the experience, it's the meaning you're giving the experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thoughts that you're having about money, the thoughts you're having about yourself, the thoughts that you're having about life. Why is this important? Because everything that you want to create, all change that you desire, your vision board, your dreams, your goals, those will be produced from a powerful state of being. That's when you're connected to intuition, inspiration, health, vibrancy, prosperity, abundance, presence, intimacy, connection. It's all in a powerful state. You don't get any of that when you're in a primal state.
Uh-huh.
And so when we're in a primal state, we're in resistance. So if we're playing the game called desire plus non-resistance equals desired result, what we start paying much more attention to is, what state of being am I in?
Mm.
And a root cause foundational way of starting to navigate life, which is a practice I'm in, not all the time, but a lot, is noticing when I've moved into a primal state, knowing that the only thing that is moving me into a primal state is my own thoughts and my own beliefs. And then observing those thoughts and beliefs and using whatever tools I have to move back into a powerful state of being. That's the practice. It's wax on, wax off.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that consistently, eventually you'll produce the desired result.
What is the thing that gets you in a primal state of being the most?
Me?
Yes.
Physical sensations in my body that I don't like. My health has been one of my mountains to climb.
Like pains or like
heart palpitations, aches, pains.
So it puts you in more of a fear mind rather than a powerful frame of mind.
Correct. It moves me into a primal state.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of things that move me into a primal state. You know, I have expectations on how my Tuesday is going to go,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't go that way. You know, somebody doesn't do a thing that they're supposed to be doing, or a marketing campaign doesn't work the way I expected it to work. and I move into a primal state, right? It's a
And what does that feel like when you go to primal state? Is it a anxiety? Is it a depression? Is it I'm not good enough? Is it something's wrong? Or what's the...
Sure, it could be anything from frustration. So emotionally, well, let's back up, because thoughts generally create emotions. The thought might be, why aren't they doing what they're supposed to be doing? What if this doesn't work out? How come they did it this way? Am I doing something wrong? Right? All of those thoughts are conducive to some sort of what you could call a negative emotion, right? A primal state. The emotions for me that are habits are frustration, anxiety, some other form of fear, shame and guilt, right? Those are my go-tos. And really what we're talking about in all this work, there's so many ways to describe personal growth, but what we're talking about is building a different neurology. Right? Think about how amazing it is as human beings. We're able to use our minds to reorganize and rewire our nervous systems and our brains.
Yeah.
And so every time you catch yourself in a primal state and you observe the thought, and we have a great set of tools, but there's a lot of great teachers out there to sort of interrogate the thought, and you actually see that the thought isn't necessarily true, you're building a new nervous system. You're building a new capacity. And so many people want to have more in their life, but like, are you capable of handling it? Right?
Yeah.
And so this is a beautiful logical process that whatever you believe our creator is created for us, which is, we start to see the deep unreality that we've been living since we adopted those early age programs, and you start to reorient yourself to a proper perception of reality. And the reward for that is you get to create more of what you want to create, but the real reward for that is you start living in joy.
Joy, peace, harmony, abundance, freedom.
Freedom.
I think a lot of people don't feel free in their life, and if you grew up not feeling safe, that means you don't have freedom.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
And at least that was for me. I didn't feel free. And it's like I wanted to create my own sense of peace and freedom.
That not feeling safe and not feeling free is pervasive in the nervous systems of human beings. And so, not only do we create our own realities, where you end up in a career where you don't feel safe, you end up in a relationship where you don't feel safe, you end up with a bank account where you don't feel safe, you end up in a body where you don't feel safe.
Yes.
But look at what we're collectively materializing at a macro level. Does the world feel safe?
No.
No. I mean, you could pick whatever you want. You could pick the war in Iran, you could pick what's happening in Gaza, you could pick the way the government is run, you could pick inflation, you could pick... All of these things are crystallizations of the unsafety that we have not as human beings yet learned to metabolize in our nervous systems. So we're never going to change that out there.
Yeah.
We will change in here. And as we change in here, those changed people will have new thoughts and new ideas to create a new system that feels safe for everyone. But that's the big mistake right now is everybody, there's a war on terror, there's a war on drugs, there's a war on this, there's a war on that. It's all more resistance. But we're told, and by the way, my equation is a derivative of the great teachings, right? We're told to be non-resistant. Like Christ says, turn the other cheek. Right? That doesn't even make any sense. You're telling me when I'm confronted by something that I don't like in the world, I'm actually supposed to turn the other cheek, give it my cheek? And if you really look at what I think that teaching is, it's when you notice something in your life that you don't like, or you notice something in the world that you don't like, which would be your enemy, you turn the cheek, which is you turn your attention in the other direction. You use the contraction or the problem in your life as an inspiration for a new desire and a new solution that you can now crystallize into reality. It's a beautiful teaching.
Yes.
But they're all there, right? Whether it's Buddha or Christ or whoever, and you could pick your guy or your gal, right? Non-resistance. But now we can see that it makes sense because behavioral psychology tells us what you believe you think you feel, what you feel you do, and what you do are the results. And so if you're thinking and feeling resistance, you're going to produce a resistant reality.
Yes.
Right?
So it all starts with a belief, or does it start with healing the past so you can create new beliefs?
My own journey was starting with my beliefs.
And you were what, around 30? You said?
In my early 30s.
So you were successful in your career, making money, accomplishing.
I wouldn't even call it successful. I would say, look, if you think a guy running a venture-backed technology company is successful, fine, but that same guy was only paying himself $80,000 a year, had $3,000 in his bank account, 2 homes in foreclosure, and had been single for 10 years. Like, how successful is that? Right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, I guess if you took a quick look, right? But was the craziest thing. I was at Miami International Airport, and I'd gotten about 18 months of sobriety under my belt. And I was like, man, if I can change this much, like, cause I never thought I was going to stop doing drugs and alcohol and sexing and everything that I was doing.
And how old were you then?
33.
33.
Right. Especially pornography. I mean, I was like, I don't think there's any way this is going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it stopped. And it didn't stop because I tried to stop it. It stopped because I was healing myself through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a phenomenal healing framework. And not only was I looking at my limiting beliefs and my resentments and healing them, but I was also, as I was clearing out, starting to find a relationship with a higher power. I didn't grow up in a family with a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all of that, and I was like, man, if this is possible, like, what else is possible? Like, maybe I could actually become wealthy. Maybe I could actually find a soulmate. Maybe I could actually... And so I was in this inquiry, and I went to Miami International Airport. I was flying somewhere. And you ever have that experience where, like, there's a book on the bookshelf and it, like, decides it's going to have a relationship with you? Like, you just feel it?
Sure.
And I walk over and I grab this book and I look at the back cover, and it had 4 statements. It said, life is full of suffering. I was like, okay, I can relate to that. The suffering is going to happen to you. There's a way out of the suffering, and the way out of the suffering is the Eightfold Path of Virtue. And I was reading the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, and I turned this book over, and it's called Awakening the Buddha Within. It's got Lama Surya Das. I buy the book. I read it cover to cover on the airplane. I was like, holy cow. The message here with this Eightfold Path of Virtue of Buddha is very... Eightfold Path of Virtue. Eightfold Path of Virtue, right? It says 8 steps.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is almost the same as the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I get back to my office, and my social media manager at the time left me a book, and I was not a reader, right? So these are miracles.
Uh-huh.
And it was a book called Kingdom Principles by Miles Monroe, where he's explaining the teachings of Christ. I'm like, it's the same steps. And so I go to Barnes & Noble, and I don't think I'd ever been into a bookstore, to be honest with you. I go to the little lady at the front desk, and I'm like, do you have a place for people who are, like, trying to get their life sorted out or whatever? She's like, oh, the self-help section. I'm like, what a wonderfully named section.
Yeah.
And there was a little book laying on the floor in that section called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I just picked it up. So I came into healing through thoughts and beliefs. I think eventually you go back and look at where these beliefs originated, and you find forgiveness, or you find proper perspective, and you heal it, right? But you don't have to go back there, because those things that happened then are showing up in your life right now.
Yes.
You know, every man you meet is dad, and every woman you meet is mom. And those are your conflicts. And, you know, if you're living with a chronic health condition, or you're living in financial scarcity, your reaction to that reality are the same programs that you had back then. So we can work with the program at any level of the timeline, right? I do think eventually we end up going back and cleaning up those early misunderstandings.
Sure.
But that, to me, that can be a little bit harder than just working with the raw material as it's showing up on a day-to-day basis. It's right there for you.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to get into a deep hypnosis or get into EMDR, all great tools, right? But like, hey, it's showing up right now with the thing on Tuesday.
Yeah.